The red warning lights flashed across the command center as Admiral Kim Jina stared at the 17 alien ships surrounding Earth. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy entire cities. "They want our answer in 3 hours," said Commander Park Min-ho. His hands shook slightly as he held the alien message. "Complete surrender or they attack." Kim Jina read the message again. The words made her stomach twist with anger. The Galactic Council called it peaceful integration. What they really meant was slavery. Humans would become workers for alien masters. No more space travel. No more weapons. No more freedom to think and create. "How did we get here?" she asked quietly. Dr. Lee Hanna looked up from her computer screen. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She had not slept in 2 days. "We trusted them. When they first arrived 5 years ago, they seemed friendly. They offered us technology, medicine, knowledge. All we had to do was follow their rules." The rules had started simple. No weapons in space. No traveling beyond certain star systems. No research into dangerous technologies. Each year, the rules got stricter. Each year, humans lost more freedom. "The other species accepted it," said Minho. "The Centauri people, the Vega colonies, everyone just gave up. They said it was better to be safe than sorry." "Safe," Kim Jina repeated the word like it tasted bad. "They call it safe when you cannot think for yourself." On the main screen, Earth looked beautiful and blue against the black of space. 3 billion humans lived down there. Most of them had no idea that their planet was about to become a prison. "The president wants to accept their terms," Dr. Lee said. Her voice was flat and tired. "The cabinet voted this morning. They think we have no choice." Kim Jina walked to the big window that looked out into space. The alien ships hung there like metal clouds, blocking out the stars. For 3 years, she had watched Earth's military get smaller and weaker. The aliens had insisted on it. They said humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable. Maybe they were right. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Bae Jimin from the communication station. "I am getting strange readings from the sun. Some kind of solar activity." The lights in the command center flickered. Then they went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in dim red light. "What happened?" Kim Jina demanded. "Solar flare," Dr. Lee said, checking her instruments. "A big one. Much bigger than normal. It just hit us." The communication systems crackled with static. On every screen, displays showed error messages. The alien ships outside had gone dark too. Even their advanced technology could not handle the massive wave of energy from the sun. "How long until we get communications back?" asked Minho. "Maybe 8 hours," Dr. Lee replied. "Maybe longer. The flare knocked out everything electronic between here and Mars." For the first time in hours, Kim Jina smiled. 8 hours of silence. 8 hours where the aliens cannot watch us or listen to us or tell us what to do. She turned to face her staff. In the red emergency lighting, they all looked like warriors ready for battle. The sight filled her with sudden hope. "Do you know what I realized?" she said. "We have been acting like we are weak. We have been acting like we need their permission to exist. But we do not." Minho frowned. "Admiral, they have 17 ships and thousands of weapons. We have maybe 30 ships that can actually fight." "Numbers are just numbers," Kim Jina replied. "What matters is what you do with what you have. For 3 years, we have held back. We have followed their rules. We have tried to be the kind of humans they wanted us to be." She walked back to the window and looked out at the dead alien ships floating in the darkness. "But what if we stopped trying to be acceptable? What if we remembered who we really are?" Dr. Lee looked up from her computer. "The restricted research files are still locked. All our best weapons designs, our most advanced technologies. The aliens made us seal them away." "Made us," Kim Jina repeated. "They made us do nothing. We chose to obey." The solar flare had cut all power to the weapons systems that monitored Earth's military bases. In underground bunkers around the world, sealed doors that had been locked for 3 years suddenly had no power keeping them closed. 8 hours, Kim Jina said again. 8 hours to remember what it feels like to be free. She turned to Minho. "Send a message to all Earth military bases. Use the old emergency channels, the ones from before the aliens came. Tell them Operation Prometheus is active." "Operation Prometheus does not exist," Minho said slowly. Kim Jina's smile was sharp as a knife. "It does now. Tell them to open everything we sealed away. Every weapon, every research file, every project we abandoned because the aliens said it was too dangerous. That could start a war, Dr. Lee whispered. We are already at war, Kim Jina replied. We just forgot how to fight. Outside, the solar flare continued to rage. The alien ships drifted helplessly in the electromagnetic storm. And on Earth, in secret facilities around the globe, humans began to remember what they were capable of when nobody was watching. When the communications came back online in 8 hours, the galaxy was going to get a very different answer than anyone expected. The breaking point had arrived. And humanity was finally ready to break free. 8 hours and 23 minutes after the solar flare ended, every communication system on Earth powered up at the same time. The alien fleet commanders expected to receive humanity's surrender message. Instead, they got something that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral Kim Jina stood in front of the main camera wearing a uniform nobody had seen for 3 years. Instead of the pale blue outfit the aliens had designed for human officials, she wore the deep black uniform of Earth's original Space Command. The one the aliens had banned as too militaristic. This is Admiral Kim Jina of Earth, she began. Her voice was calm but her eyes burned with quiet fire. We have considered your ultimatum very carefully. On 17 different alien ships, commanders leaned forward in their chairs. High Commander Zalcor of the main fleet tapped his claws on his command chair. Finally, the humans would surrender like every other species had done. Our answer is no. The word hit the alien fleet like a physical blow. On the bridge of the Council flagship, High Commander Zalcor's mouth fell open. In 3,000 years of galactic expansion, no species had ever simply refused to surrender. Furthermore, Kim Jina continued, Earth withdraws from all galactic treaties. We reject your authority over human development. We reject your rules about what we can build, where we can go, and how we must live. Behind her, 2 soldiers removed the blue flag of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty from the wall. In its place, they raised a new flag. Black as space with a blue earth in the center and one word in bold white letters, freedom. Commander Park Min-ho stepped into view beside the Admiral. For 3 years, you told us we were dangerous because we asked too many questions. You said we were chaotic because we refused to do things the same way they had always been done. You called us unstable because we would not accept limits. He smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. Thank you for the compliments. Dr. Lee Hanna joined them, carrying a data tablet. While you planned our surrender, we planned our liberation. Project Prometheus is now active. All restricted technologies are being released. All banned research is continuing. All suppressed innovations are being implemented immediately. High Commander Zalcor found his voice. This is impossible. You cannot simply ignore galactic law. No species has ever. No species has ever been human before, Kim Jina interrupted. You made one mistake, Commander. You assumed we would act like everyone else. You assumed we would choose safety over freedom. The transmission showed Earth behind the Admiral. But it was not the same Earth the aliens had been watching for 3 years. Lights blazed from every continent. Energy signatures pulsed from locations that had been dark and quiet for years. Construction beams reached up into space from a dozen different sites. What are you doing down there? Zalcor demanded. Everything you told us not to do, Dr. Lee replied cheerfully. We are building ships you said were impossible. We are developing weapons you claimed were too dangerous. We are pursuing research you insisted was forbidden. The alien sensors were going crazy. Energy readings spiked across Earth's surface. In underground facilities, lights came on for the first time in 3 years. Scientists who had been forced to abandon their life's work returned to their laboratories with tears of joy on their faces. Lieutenant Nam Yoi appeared on screen next to the others. We want to thank you, actually. By forcing us to hide our best ideas, you gave us 3 years to think about them. To improve them. To make them even more creative than before. This is madness, Zalcor transmitted. You have 30 ships. We have 17 fleets. You will be destroyed. Admiral Kim Jina's laugh was cold as winter. You still think this is about numbers. You still think we will fight by your rules. But we stopped playing your game 8 hours ago. The camera pulled back to show Earth in all its glory. But now the aliens could see something that made their blood run cold. Ships were launching. Not the small, carefully regulated vessels they had permitted humans to build. These were something new. Something that looked like no ship design in any galactic database. You wanted to pacify us, Kim Jina said. Instead, you reminded us why we reached for the stars in the first place. Humans do not ask permission to be human. The transmission began to end, but Kim Jina had one more message. You have 48 hours to leave this solar system. After that, any armed vessel within our space will be considered hostile. And trust me, commanders, you do not want to find out what humans can do when we stop holding back. The screen went black. On the alien flagship, High Commander Zalcor stared at the empty display. Around him, his officers chatted in panic. This had never happened before. In the entire history of galactic expansion, no species had ever just said no. Sir, his sensor operator called out, voice shaking. The energy readings from Earth are off the charts. Whatever they are building down there, it is like nothing in our databases. Send a message to the Galactic Council, Zalcor ordered. Tell them we have a problem. Tell them the humans are not surrendering. What are they doing instead, sir? Zalcor looked out at Earth, where lights blazed and ships launched and an entire species was remembering what it felt like to be free. I think, he said slowly, they are declaring war on the concept of limitation itself. The galaxy was about to learn why the Galactic Council had been afraid of human potential in the first place. 7 days after Earth's declaration, the galaxy watched in growing terror as humanity transformed itself with impossible speed. Dr. Lee Hanna stood in what used to be called the Restricted Research Center, now renamed the Freedom Laboratory. Around her, hundreds of human scientists worked with the excitement of children who had just been told they could build anything they wanted. Temperature fusion achieved in Lab 5, called out Dr. Kim Tae-hyung, barely looking up from his workstation. We made the atoms agree to stick together at room temperature. How did you do that? Asked Dr. Yang Sejin, pausing her work on something that looked like it might fold space in half. We asked them nicely and then refused to take no for an answer, Tae-hyung grinned. Turns out the universe is much more cooperative when you stop following all the rules. The aliens had spent thousands of years developing technology slowly and carefully. They had committees and safety meetings and impact studies for everything. Humans, finally free from those restrictions, approached problems the way they approached everything else, by ignoring everyone who said it could not be done. The Seoul shipyards just finished their first prototype, announced Commander Park Min-ho as he rushed into the lab. His uniform was covered in oil stains and his hair stuck up in every direction, but his eyes shone with pure joy. The engineers decided that normal ships were boring, so they built one that exists in 3 different dimensions at the same time. That breaks about 15 laws of physics, Dr. Yang pointed out. Only if you believe in those laws, Park Min-ho replied. The engineering team voted to ignore them. Above Earth, construction continued 24 hours a day. The orbital shipyards built vessels that looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. They did not follow alien design principles because humans had never learned those principles properly. And now it was too late to start. Admiral Kim Jina stood on the observation deck of the new orbital command station, watching humanity's fleet take shape. Ships with names like Defiance, Free Thought, and Impossible Dream hung in space like metal poems written in defiance of common sense. Status report, she requested. Our defensive grid is at 70% completion, reported Lieutenant Commander Bae Jimin. The new barrier generators work perfectly, but our physics team cannot explain how they work. Do we need to explain it? Apparently not. The barriers stop everything we have tested them with. Dr. Lee says they are powered by what she calls applied determination. On Earth's surface, every major city hummed with activity. Factories that had been shut down for 3 years roared back to life, producing technologies that made alien engineers weep with frustration. Research facilities opened projects that had been sealed away, developing weapons that should not exist and defenses that violated several fundamental laws of reality. Admiral, called Communications Officer Nam Yori from her station. We are receiving very angry messages from the Galactic Council. They demand to know how we are making such rapid technological progress. Kim Jina's smile could have cut glass. Tell them we are doing what humans have always done best, ignoring people who tell us something is impossible. In the Freedom Laboratory, Dr. Lee Hanna worked on a device that convinced matter to reorganize itself based on strongly worded suggestions. Beside her, a team of engineers had built an engine that ran on recycled impossibility. Across the room, someone had created a weapon that fired concentrated stubbornness at enemy targets. The alien psychology is fascinating, Dr. Lee said to her research partner, Dr. Choi Min-ho. They spend so much time asking is this allowed, that they never ask what if we tried anyway. Their biggest weakness is that they believe their own limitations, Choi agreed. We never learned to believe in limitations properly. The changes were not just technological. Humans who had spent 3 years walking with their heads down and speaking in quiet voices suddenly stood straight and talked loudly. Artists created works that existed in colors the aliens had never seen. Musicians wrote songs that could be heard across star systems. Writers told stories that made reality itself pay attention. "Sir," Lieutenant BAE reported to Admiral Kim Jina. "Our deep space sensors are detecting 17 alien fleets moving toward our position. They will arrive within 6 days." Kim Jina nodded calmly. "What is the status of our new weapons systems?" "The quantum disruption cannons are operational, though nobody can explain what they disrupt or how. The reality adjustment missiles are ready for deployment. And the engineering team just finished something they are calling the physics denial field." "What does that one do?" "It makes enemy weapons forget how to work properly." 6 days. The aliens expected to fight humans using their own tactics, their own strategies, their own understanding of how war should be conducted. They expected humans to follow the rules of engagement that every other species followed. They were about to discover their mistake. "Send a message to all Earth Defense Forces," Admiral Kim Jina commanded. "Operation Free will begin in 6 days. Tell them to prepare for the kind of battle that has never been fought before." Around Earth, impossible ships moved in impossible formations, carrying weapons that worked on impossible principles. Human crews trained for combat scenarios that alien military academics would have dismissed as fantasy. The galaxy had spent millennia perfecting the art of predictable, regulated warfare. Humanity was about to introduce them to chaos theory applied at the tactical level. "One more thing," Kim Jina added. "Send a message to the approaching alien fleets. Tell them they still have 5 days to turn around and leave. After that, they will discover why the Galactic Council was afraid of us in the first place." The universe was about to get its first lesson in what humans could accomplish when they stopped asking permission to be exceptional. The alien fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. High Admiral Korthax commanded 300 of the finest warships in galactic history. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy moons. Each crew had trained for centuries in the art of civilized warfare. They expected to face desperate humans in primitive ships, begging for mercy. They got something completely different. "Contact detected," reported the sensor operator on the alien flagship. "Single human vessel approaching our position. Ship type, unknown." Admiral Kim Jina's voice came across space from the bridge of the Uncompromising. The ship looked like nothing in any alien database. It seemed to shift and change shape as they watched it, as if it could not decide what it wanted to be. "This is your final warning," Kim Jina said calmly. "Leave this system immediately or face the consequences." High Admiral Korthax examined the readings with growing confusion. His sensors told him there was 1 human ship. Then they told him there were 5 ships. Then they gave up and displayed error messages. "Human Commander," Korthax replied, "you face a fleet of 300 vessels. Each one is more powerful than anything your species has ever built. Surrender now and we will be merciful." "No thanks," came the cheerful reply. "Also, you are counting wrong." Before Korthax could ask what she meant, space around his fleet exploded into impossible geometry. What had looked like 1 human ship suddenly became dozens. Each ship seemed to occupy the same location while somehow remaining separate. They had built vessels that folded space around themselves like origami made of reality itself. "All ships, open fire," Korthax commanded. 300 alien warships fired their weapons with precision that had been perfected over thousands of years. Every shot hit its target perfectly. The energy readings showed direct impacts on multiple human vessels. Nothing happened. The human ships absorbed the weapon's fire like sponges soaking up water. Some redirected the energy back at the aliens. Others seemed to politely decline to be damaged. 1 ship turned the incoming plasma bolts into flowers that drifted harmlessly through space. Commander Park Minho, aboard the Free Will, opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "Thank you for the target practice. Your weapons are very impressive. Unfortunately, we stopped following the same physics you used about 2 weeks ago." What followed was not a battle in any sense that alien military academies would recognize. The humans fought like they did everything else, with creative chaos and a complete refusal to follow established procedures. Their ships moved in patterns that made alien navigation computers crash. Their weapons did things that violated the basic laws of how weapons were supposed to work. The Uncompromising turned itself inside out to avoid a missile barrage, then reassembled behind the alien formation and politely asked if they were lost. The Free Will convinced an entire squadron of enemy ships that they were actually on the same side and should attack their own fleet instead. The impossible dream simply wished very hard that the alien weapons would stop working, and somehow, they did. Dr. Lee Hanna, coordinating the battle from Earth's command center, watched the engagement with scientific fascination. They are trying to jam our communications using standard galactic interference patterns. Should I tell them we are not using galactic communications anymore? Let them figure it out themselves, laughed Admiral Kim Jina as the Uncompromising performed a maneuver that involved existing in 7 different places simultaneously. It will be educational for them. High Admiral Korthax stared at his tactical display in growing panic. His fleet was completely intact. Not one ship had been destroyed. But they were also completely helpless. Human vessels surrounded his formation in patterns that should not be possible, wielding weapons that his science officers claimed violated several fundamental laws of reality. This cannot be happening, he transmitted on open channels. You cannot simply ignore the laws of physics. Lieutenant Commander BAE Jimin's response was cheerfully educational. We are not ignoring them, Admiral. We are just interpreting them more creatively. Physics is surprisingly flexible when you approach it with the right attitude and enough coffee. The human ships continued their impossible dance around the alien fleet. One group of vessels played what appeared to be a game of 3-dimensional chess, using enemy battleships as pieces. Another squadron had convinced a nearby asteroid to join the battle on humanity's side. Our weapons are useless, reported Korthax's weapons officer. Every time we fire, something different happens. The last salvo turned into butterflies. Our navigation systems are giving contradictory readings, added the helm officer. According to our computers, we are simultaneously in 17 different locations, including one that appears to be inside a black hole filled with jazz music. High Admiral Korthax had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. He had conquered dozens of star systems using tactics that had worked for millennia. But he had never faced an enemy that refused to acknowledge that there were rules to warfare in the first place. This is impossible, he said again, but his voice was weaker now. Impossible is just a word people use when they have not thought hard enough, replied Commander Park Minho. We prefer the term temporarily improbable. After 6 hours of what humans called battle and aliens called mass hallucination, High Admiral Korthax finally understood that he was facing an enemy that could not be defeated using conventional methods. Or any methods that made sense. I surrender, he transmitted, his voice hollow with defeat. Smart choice, Admiral Kim Jina replied. You have 24 hours to leave our solar system. And please tell the Galactic Council that Earth is no longer accepting their rules about what is possible. The alien fleet limped away from Earth's system, their sensor logs full of readings that their computers refused to believe. Word spread across the galaxy with the speed of terrified gossip. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had made the concept of conventional warfare look foolish in the process. 6 months after Earth said no to the galaxy, Admiral Kim Jina stood on the observation deck of Freedom Station, watching something that should have been impossible. The station orbited a planet called New Hope, which had been under alien control for 200 years. Now it was free, and humans worked alongside grateful alien refugees to build ships that made no sense but worked perfectly. Status report from the Liberation Fleet, announced Commander Park Minho, now wearing the uniform of the Free Worlds Alliance. His jacket had patches from 17 different species, all working together for the first time in galactic history. The Rigel system just voted to join us. That makes 63 star systems that have broken away from Council control. Dr. Lee Hanna looked up from her latest project, a device that convinced gravity to work sideways on Tuesdays. Around her, alien scientists from a dozen different worlds worked with human researchers, all of them grinning like children who had discovered they were allowed to break rules. The Council keeps trying to copy our technology, she reported cheerfully. Their problem is they keep asking how does this work, instead of why shouldn't this work. They cannot think outside their own limitations. The transformation had been extraordinary. Species that had been under Council control for centuries suddenly remembered what it felt like to innovate. The Kepler colonies were developing art forms that existed in dimensions nobody knew existed. The vegan traders had created economic systems based on the principle that money should be more fun. The Centauri engineers were building cities that floated in the air because they thought it looked nicer than building on the ground. Incoming transmission from Earth, reported Communications Officer Nam Yuri, now coordinating a network that spanned half the galaxy and operated on principles that made traditional communication look like shouting across a field. Secretary General Choi Dae-ho appeared on the main screen, speaking from Earth's new Global Freedom Center. Behind him, the view showed Earth's sky filled with ships coming and going, carrying supplies and people and ideas to worlds that had never known freedom. "Gina," he said with a smile, "the Galactic Council wants another peace negotiation. They say they are prepared to discuss mutually acceptable terms for galactic coexistence." Admiral Kim Gina laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Tell them we will consider it." Right after they explain how they plan to put restrictions on a galaxy that has already remembered how to think for itself. Through the viewing ports, she could see the impossible sight of the free world's fleet. Ships that existed in multiple realities at once flew alongside vessels that had convinced physics to take a vacation. Crews of humans, aliens, and artificial intelligences that had developed senses of humor worked together on projects that would have given Council scientists nervous breakdowns. "What is the status of Council military movements?" she asked. "Still trying to figure out how to fight enemies that refuse to follow the same rules they do," replied Park Min-ho with obvious amusement. "Our intelligence reports suggest they have formed a committee to study the problem of fighting wars against people who treat warfare like a creative exercise." "A committee," Dr. Lee Hanna repeated without looking up from her work. "That explains why they never accomplished anything interesting in 3,000 years. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Worlds that had been quiet and obedient for centuries suddenly burst into activity. Species rediscovered art forms their ancestors had abandoned because the Council said they were too chaotic. Scientists pursued research that had been banned for being too unpredictable. Engineers built things that worked perfectly despite having no right to exist." "Status report on Operation Next Chapter?" Admiral Kim Gina asked. "The Andromeda Galaxy is looking very promising," reported Park Min-ho, consulting his data pad. "Completely unexplored. No Council presence. No rules about what we can or cannot build there." "Perfect," she said. "It is time to export freedom to a whole new galaxy." On the main screen, Secretary General Choi was still smiling. "The Council also sent a formal complaint about our destabilizing influence on galactic civilization. They say we are encouraging dangerous thinking among the younger species." "Dangerous thinking," Kim Gina repeated thoughtfully. "They mean we are teaching people to ask what if, instead of